Welcome. Today we're going to go over how to add in the Skill Builders plugin for a client-side timeout feature in Oracle Apex. It's been working since version 5, so it does work in earlier versions, but currently we're in version 23.2. To start, we're just going to go over these steps and kind of work through it that way. The first one is downloading the plugin, so let's go to Skill Builder Timeout plugin. You'll see that they have the GitHub site up for that. And so for here, we're going to just go in, hit the code, and hit the download zip. Okay, so after you have that downloaded, just going to unzip it. And you'll see in this unzipped file here that we have this dynamic action plugin here. So we're going to be using this. All right, next, let's import the plugin to the project. So in general, for importing the plugins, we're going to go into the shared components, go into plugins, hit import, and we can drag that SQL file. All right, so once you have that in there, just hit next. Hit next. And then you can choose the app, but we're doing the one we're in, so we're going to hit install. Let's just go back to shared components, just so you see how we get into there. So once you have the plugin installed, you'll have this list that shows up here. And then if we go back to share components and go into component settings, that's right under it. That's how you'll get back to those details we were just looking at. Here we'll just touch on each of these different settings in the component. First one is the session timeout action. You can either do alert, redirect, or log out. Alert you with this message here, whichever you put down, or it'll redirect you to like a URL, or it'll log you out using the logout function attached to your application settings. So the mass browser screen on timeout is a yes, no, and if you have it marked as yes, it's gonna gray out the screen. The thing you can see is the alert timeout message. Otherwise, it'll be like a modal diagram that shows up with the message, and you can still see what's in the background. The session idle warning is kind of like a session timeout message. Is just another message where it'll warn you before it actually times out to give the user a chance to kind of get back and click around on the screen. This includes the title message that'll show up in the modal dialog that comes up. The show seconds before option here. This is based on the timeout second warning, which is located on a different screen. And then the last one is keep session alive. It's a yes, no. And it says this will keep the user's session active on the server, but depending on your use case, this may only work for the client side. In a different video, we'll go over how to enable this plugin for server side for specific use cases. In this section, the two main attributes we're going to be looking at is the maximum session length in seconds and the maximum session idle time in seconds. The difference between these two is that the session length option, this will not allow the user to extend their session any further. But at 5 minutes, the user will need to log back in after 5 minutes each time. Now the session idle time here though, just if the user is away from their screen, it gives the user a chance to get back to the screen, and that will just extend it as they're moving around. Now with that in mind, we're going to be updating this session idle time because this is what will be used with the plugin that we're using. Okay, so we'll go to share components, plugins, go to the session builder timeout. So for this plugin, you can see the type and category where it's a dynamic action. There's these options. We're going to stick with dynamic action and then categorize, initialize. We're going to keep that in place as well. And this is the PL/SQL block of code used to render the timeout. And this is used in combination with a few JavaScript files and Apex APIs. The next thing we're going to do is go back to the component settings and reset that for the test timeout. So we're going to put this 10 seconds before and our test timeout 20, so this should trigger at 10 seconds. The last thing we're going to do is set up this plugin so it's running globally across the application. To do that, we're going to go on the global page. On the global page, we're going to go to the dynamic action section. Right here, this lightning bolt. We're going to right click, create dynamic action. You can name it, and we're going to initialize it on load, so on page load. And then we're going to add a server-side condition where we're only going to have this for authenticated pages. The action to run when the true, we're going to go here. We're going to hit the action, and then you'll see this initialize Skill Builder session timeout plugin, so we're going to click that. On the execution, you'll see that we're going to fire on initialization, so we're going to check that box, and then we're going to hit save. Go back and run the application. We wait 10 seconds. Okay, so we got that warning. And so now you have to click an actual change. If you just stay on the page and click on an empty page, it's not going to do anything to extend the time. And so if you don't click anything, you'll get this next alert here, which says the session has been idle for too long. When you hit OK here, it's going to redirect you to the home page. We have successfully added in the skill builders to your Apex application following these 6 main steps. The first thing we'll do here is modify these messages. So we'll change the session has been idle too long in the warning dialog. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so we're in the component settings and we're going to modify the session timeout message here just to give the users a little more information there. Next thing we're going to do is for the session idle warning is modify that as well. And then this last box will switch to yes. So this will modify the messages we saw previously here. So these two, we hit apply. So you can see this was updated. And then this has been updated as well. The other area this is available to modify, at least the default, is in the shared components in the plugin settings. So we come into here, down into the PL SQL block. You'll see that the line 36, 43, 42 default messaging. So if that attribute is null or empty, it'll default to this message here. And that's the same idea for the session. Will expire shortly, so you can modify these as like a default, but then you'll just have to verify that the attribute itself that you're reading is not populated. The next thing we're going to do is modify the plugin. The next thing we're going to do is modify the idle timer JavaScript file, which is a jQuery library. We'll come into the plugin, we'll go down to the bottom where the JavaScript files are attached to, so down in the files section, and then we'll download these files. The main one we're going to modify is the idle timeout. Okay, so now with those downloaded, you'll see that the idle timer min.js file looks similar to this, where you can control F and find the mouse move, or if you scroll over a little bit, you'll see the different events that will extend the idle timer. Right now it's mouse move, key down, down mouse scroll, mouse wheel, mouse down, touch start, and touch move. For our use case, we want to limit that a little more. It's not just like the mouse moving. So this is just going to limit what triggers the idle timeout and makes that get extended. We don't want just someone hitting the mouse. They need to do one of these specific events instead. Okay, so once you save this, you'll come in here and you'll re-upload it. So if you create file, and you can drag and drop the file here, actually overwrite it.